Introduction. Every single one of us has the drive to succeed. However, sometimes that drive is not always accompanied by the knowledge that we need in order to do so. Fortunately, there are many ways that you can gain the skills that are necessary in becoming a success. In fact, it can be broken down into simple step-by-step instructions so that you and anybody else can achieve their dreams. It can be so discouraging at times to know what you want to do with your life or your time, but be unable to understand where to start. It is one of the most difficult things in life when you have a goal, but you do not actually have the tools that you need to see it through. Nobody deserves to be discouraged that way, and we can all overcome this obstacle with time and persistence. It takes patience to achieve something great, but if you are unable to begin, then you will never end up where you want to be. In this training, you're going to be handed all the tools that you will need in order to become a success. A lot of people believe that the only way to accomplish a goal is to plan for every step of the way, and in a way that can be true. However, some of us are more motivated when our plans are loose and freeing, and we are able to modify them to suit our schedules and our lives. No matter what kind of person you happen to be, you can succeed and you can achieve your dreams. In this training, you're going to find out a lot more about yourself than you have probably ever considered before. Because one of the most important things that you must do in order to achieve success is to know yourself inside and out. People who do not know themselves are unable to predict their own flaws and shortcomings and plan for them. When you can't plan for the ups and downs, then success is often very elusive. That doesn't mean that it is impossible to succeed. As long as you're open and honest with yourself about your goals and your shortcomings, then you have all the tools that you need in order to begin working away at your most important plans. Make sure that you are serious about beginning before you read this training, because when you take that first step, there is no going back. Once you get started, there is no excuse that you can make in order to let yourself feel comfortable in slacking at your goals. There's a popular saying, where there is a will, there is a way. And that has never been more true when it comes to planning for your success. No matter how difficult it might appear, you're going to find that once the process of succeeding is broken down into a step-by-step format, there is nothing that you can't do. As long as you are willing to take on all of the work that needs to go into succeeding at your particular goal, then you're going to be a success. And sure, sometimes not every goal is going to be met. There are going to be ideas that, every once in a while, might need to go on the back burner or be given up entirely. That does not make you a failure. In fact, if you are willing to learn from these experiences and continue to move forward, all that they serve to do is to add to your success. If you want to be a well-rounded, confident, successful person, and you are hoping to achieve those dreams as soon as possible, follow this step-by-step guide to learn exactly what needs to be done in order to plan for your success and reap the harvest of your hard work as soon as possible. Let's start now. Taking the time to take action. This may seem obvious, but sometimes we need a schedule before we can succeed. If we are not aware of how we are spending our time, then it can become extremely challenging for us to carve out the time that we need to take in order to work on achieving our goals. You need to be willing to take a step back and examine your life in terms of increments of time. For example, think about the time obligations that you have that are not disputable. What are the things that you have to do and set the time aside for every day? Whether you are the type who thrives with a strict routine or you simply like to live your life as it happens, there are undoubtedly going to be times that you have to set aside for certain tasks. Grocery shopping, going to work, cooking, sleeping, and things like that are all indisputable ways that you are obligated to spend your time. Take these into consideration and give it your best guess as to how much time you spend per day on those things. Come up with more if you have to. Consider all of your obligations and think about how much time that leaves you free throughout the day. It's actually surprisingly easy to find the time to work on a plan that you are especially passionate about. If your mind is focused enough on working on that plan, it is going to seek out the time that you need in order to work on it. It can be useful to give yourself a minimum amount of time that you are willing to work per day on your plan. However, you should also have the maximum amount of time. It can be dangerous and time-consuming to get so absorbed with one goal. Becoming single-minded can often lead to success, but not if you are sacrificing too much along the way. There is a delicate balance to these things, and this will be discussed more in depth later on in the training. Once you know how much free time you have during your day, Think about what you can do to work on your goal in that amount of time. If it's not a lot of free time, think about the things in your list that might be flexible enough to allow you to work on your plans. If even that seems too difficult, maybe you should set aside time on days that you have more freedom so that you can work on your goals at least once a week as opposed to increments every day. The trick here is to find something that actually works for you, and you alone, that will help you to remain motivated to succeed. If you are able to take steps, measurable steps toward achieving your goals, success is inevitable. The key here is consistency. Even if you are not working on your plans daily, as long as you are constantly making progress as opposed to getting discouraged or distracted and not working on your goal at all, you will succeed. The fastest way to failure is to not even try. Conclusion. Sometimes there is nothing more overwhelming than being faced with the task of achieving a goal that is important to you. However, it is more than possible to become successful in ways that you may never have imagined possible before. By following this step-by-step guide to planning for success, you will address the things that often keep even the most motivated people from becoming successful. There is no shame in accepting the fact that you are human, and that as a human, we have faults that need addressed before we can plan for success. It is wise to remember that each of us has shortcomings and challenges that are unique to us and our particular situations when it comes to achieving the things that we hope to accomplish. If you are ready and willing to face those obstacles head-on and provide yourself with the opportunity to become successful, rather than fearing your success or sabotaging yourself by overworking your mind and not allowing yourself the chance to process, then success is only a step away. All you have to do is continue to try and keep your goal clear in your mind. If you can't do that, just refer to the steps in this training so that you will get right back on track and continue working toward achieving your goals. It has never been easier to become successful. This world is full of opportunities and technological advancements that make it easy for anybody anywhere to have a voice that millions of people are able to hear. If you are able and willing to understand these resources at your disposal and utilize them to your greatest advantage, then there's no reason why you can't make your dreams a reality. Your biggest obstacle will always be yourself. That is why planning for success involves so much introspection and discipline. Without those two most fundamental things, no matter how realistic and exciting your plan may be, you are bound to run into challenges that may be impossible to overcome. As long as you are ready to face your fears head-on and follow the steps outlined for you in this guide, then success is only a step away. But the only person who can take that step is you. Fortunately, everybody else is capable of creating the structure and routine that is necessary for success. Even if you work better without any structure or routine, as long as you are willing to work your hardest to see that your dreams become reality, then they will. There is no reason to be discouraged when the goal that you have is something that will fulfill you and bring meaning and passion into your life. There is nothing more important than that. And so, starting today, make yourself a promise. Promise yourself that you will go through this guide and remember all of the steps that you need to take now and every day after today in order to make your dream a reality. Remain devoted to achieving those goals and filling in the pieces of your jigsaw puzzle until you finally have the big picture laid out before you. Nobody can do this for you. And if you start today, you're already on your way to achieving your dreams. Know where you are going by visualizing your goal. One of the hardest things about succeeding can sometimes be knowing where you want to end up. Sure, we all have a generalized idea of success as having a lot of money and working at doing something that we are passionate about. However, that isn't enough. What you need before you can succeed is a detailed outline of exactly what it is that you want to succeed at. Without that, all of your planning would be for naught. A lot of people prefer not to think about where they want to end up, because maybe sometimes during childhood we have been discouraged from thinking big. We're oftentimes discouraged and told that we are daydreaming and that we should not get ahead of ourselves. Our motivation is squashed at an early age when people tell us that we are not being realistic enough and that we should make sure that we're doing something that is both reasonable and stable. That means that we are often discouraged from taking the risks that we need to take before we will ever succeed at anything in this life. That can be very dangerous, especially to a driven and motivated person. We all have something that we want to accomplish in this life, and if we are not allowed to think in depth about that, then we may never actually take the steps that we need to take in order to get there. It can be so toxic to listen to the people around us who are telling us that we should not be thinking about things that we want to think about when we are unable to develop our vision. Then we soon forget that we have a vision at all, and we get stuck in the humdrum routine of everyday life. Nobody wants to be stuck there. And this is how you get out of that rut and start succeeding. To begin with, think deeply about exactly what you want to do and why you want to do it. Using visualization techniques can be extremely helpful when it comes to achieving your goals. First of all, you should visualize where you want to end up, presuming that your goal is successful. What is your ultimate outcome? Without knowing that, there is a lot of white noise in the way that prevents you from going after your dreams and believing that your goals are actually realistic enough that you could accomplish them, provided that you were able to devote enough time and energy and resources to that project. Once you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, you should also start to visualize the steps that you might need to take in order to get there. This doesn't mean a detailed outline quite yet, as this will come in later steps. But you should have a mental idea of what you're going to have to encounter when it comes to making your dreams a reality. Planning for success, of course, does involve real plans, and this visualization process is going to help you understand what you are going to be dealing with when it comes to getting those plans off the ground. Step 1 should be fun and exciting. You should begin to feel energized after you have begun to explore your ultimate goal. This is going to be the inspiration that continues to drive you forward along your path of planning for success. Without that motivation, it can be very easy to become discouraged by other people and by the challenges that we naturally face when we are attempting to achieve a goal. No matter how big or how small, set goals that challenge you. Those challenges should not be discouraging so much as they should be proof that we are working towards something wonderful and we are enriching our lives by doing so. Once you have held on to that motivation and you have been able to visualize your goal in depth, then it is time to move on to step 2 and work on learning more about you. Acknowledging when something isn't working and moving on. Here's the thing. None of us are infallible. And yet most of the time when we come up with a plan of action, we usually decide that we are the only ones who are capable enough of ensuring that our plan is at its highest capacity. Sure, you're the one who knows where you want to end up, and you're the one who is putting most of the effort into getting there. However, sometimes no matter how successful you are, you may be prone to having a blind spot. Having a blind spot isn't a bad thing. Even the most professional of writers cannot adequately proofread their own manuscripts because they are prone to having a blind spot to their own shortcomings when it comes to the manuscript. That doesn't mean that they don't know their faults or haven't worked on improving them. What it means is that they have spent so much time working so closely on their manuscript that they have a blind spot. They are biased. They have a hard time seeing their work objectively enough to recognize when something doesn't work. And that isn't really a bad thing. It is just a human thing. Sometimes we may put so much work and effort into doing something one way and finding that it fails again and again that we aren't willing to be able to look for an alternative path. This can be extremely damaging to somebody who is working hard on achieving a specific goal. If they are too blinded by the course they have set for themselves to be objective about the challenges they are facing, it can waste precious time and resources on recharting a path that is doomed to fail again and again. So how do you know when you've reached a dead end? You need to ask yourself some very important questions. For example, are you being honest with yourself about the path you are on right now? Have you been ignoring negative experiences or feedback rather than learning from it? Are you being more emotional than logical when it comes to the approach that you are taking? Have you acted impulsively rather than strategically in some way? If the situation you were in were reversed, what would you tell somebody else who was undergoing what you were dealing with? Are you wasting more time or money than you anticipated without getting the results you anticipated? And what if you were going down a difficult path? What would you think of as the worst case scenario if you continue down this path? Is it utter destruction? And do you see yourself evading this fate in any way, shape, or form? If not, then it may be about time to let go of your strategy or plan and go back to the drawing board. There's nothing wrong with admitting that you are having a hard time with something and the path that you are on is not leading to the place you want to be. Only you can define success, and sometimes success is only achieved by knowing when to give up and try something new. Staying motivated. The trick to achieving your goals really comes down to staying motivated. It can be so easy to lose that spark of motivation and begin slipping when it comes to making the effort necessary and carve out the time you need in order to succeed. You might feel like it's okay to skip one day of working toward your goal, but soon you find that it has become a slippery slope and you're tumbling down day after day of ignoring your plans. Motivation is tricky. If it wasn't, more people would be able to achieve their goals and make their dreams come true. Fortunately, there are ways that you can make sure that you don't let the motivation to succeed pass you by. To begin with, you should set the time aside every day to look over your progress and scan over what you have done and what you have yet to do. If you are keeping a journal, flipping through it can be all the motivation you might need to get fired up and get to work so you can add more pages to your checklist of completed items. Another trick to staying motivated is to stop abruptly while you're working on something and don't allow yourself to go back to it until the next day. For example, only give yourself an hour or two to work on a task and stop while you are still fired up about finishing it. Don't burn yourself out by dedicating more than your allotted amount of time on your task. If you do that, you will easily find the motivation and pick up where you left off the next time you get a chance. Motivation can be fleeting, so it can help to have visual reminders of your goal in places that you see frequently. You can create a poster or motivation board full of images and quotes that help to inspire you and keep you on track. You could even begin to ask other people to ask you about your progress, so that you have the extra incentive to continue working and moving forward. If you were able to keep up your motivation, the rest should come with relative ease. Just follow the step-by-step guide, and you will find yourself full steam ahead toward achieving your dreams. Getting to know your strengths and weaknesses. When we think of a successful person, we often picture somebody who is very confident and capable. However, we often don't stop to think about how they got that way. Sure, it seems at least in mainstream portrayals of successful men and women that many successful people are full of themselves. So it seems hard to believe that they will be able to do the type of introspection that this step is going to require. If somebody already believes that they are perfect, then they are unlikely to believe that there is any room for improvement. However, there is always room for improvement, and the person who is willing to see that and acknowledge it and work on those steps that need to be taken in order to improve are the most likely to get somewhere. If you don't believe that you have any weaknesses that might get in the way of achieving your goals, that itself is a weakness. That type of thinking can backfire when it comes to your plans. Nobody is infallible. And the more willing we are to accept that, the more likely we are to succeed. That doesn't mean that you have to go around telling everybody about how you are bad at this or that and giving the impression that you lack confidence. As a matter of fact, a lot of this process is going to be personal to you. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily share every step of the way with your friends and family and coworkers. Actually, it's fine if you don't, just as long as you're finding some way to be held accountable to your actions and face your weaknesses head on. By being able to look inward and realize that maybe perseverance isn't your strong suit, or maybe you need to work more on self-discipline, you are actually giving yourself a new goal that will help you to achieve the bigger goal. We can call these little goals support goals. A support goal can help you to become the person that you need to be in order to actually achieve the success that you are envisioning for yourself and your plan. Without these little support goals along the way, then your likelihood of success dwindles. But if you are willing to take the time for introspection, you will discover that these support goals will help you to stay on track. Introspection is relatively simple. Sometimes all it takes is listening to feedback about your behaviors objectively. This can be difficult for all of us. We don't like hearing from other people that there are ways that we are lacking, so maybe try looking inward first. Think about the ways you know that you could be better, and yet you still have not found the time to improve in those ways. Maybe you don't know how. Only you are going to be able to determine what your true weaknesses and your true strengths are. Once you have identified those, there are thousands upon thousands of resources, from websites to self-help books, that can help you to learn how to cope with your weaknesses and become a more well-rounded person that is truly capable of achieving your goals. Many of us even have childhood trauma that can get in the way of our success. If we are raised to believe that we are not capable of succeeding, or that maybe we are not smart enough to succeed, then we are probably going to take it on the authority of the figures that have discouraged or traumatized us. Many traumatized people are self-sabotaging, and it can be extremely useful to get yourself into some sort of therapy or support program if you suspect that maybe you have childhood trauma or trauma even in adulthood that may be preventing you from living the life that you want to live. Step 2 doesn't have to be discouraging in thinking about the ways that we are lacking, however. There are also essential reasons that we need to focus on the ways that we are strong. Those strengths are going to be inherent aspects of our personalities and constitutions that provide us with the support and motivation that we need in order to succeed. Sometimes it can be just as difficult to discover what our strengths are as it is to think about our weaknesses. A lot of us are often down on ourselves and only find self-worth through the validation of others. However, there is a terrible way to live, and the self-made person is one who can validate him or herself without having to rely on the opinions or perceptions of others. It is good to be confident. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, most people believe that if you are too aware of your strengths, it can lead to a swollen ego and a big head that makes it hard for you to relate to other people and to see your own faults. However, actually knowing your faults and taking the steps that you need in order to turn them into strengths is a great way to help you build your confidence and start to feel okay with those icky parts of yourself that may make you feel uncomfortable and insecure. Think about what you are good at. What do people compliment you for the most? How many ways can you think of that you have developed skills that can be utilized in your process of planning for success? There are bound to be many ways and many talents that you have, whether they are discovered yet or not. If you aren't sure, you can ask a trusted friend or family member to try and help you to discover what it is that you have that other people may not. Make sure that they know that you are not fishing for compliments, because this can drive people away. Instead, ensure that they realize that you're simply trying to figure out a way to put your best foot forward. You will both be glad that you had the conversation, and you are going to be that much closer to planning for your success.